How are you, my viewers, my family, my friends? Welcome to my channel. My name is Caroline Mwara. Today I want to talk about communication. It's a very interesting topic. It's a topic where most people don't get to understand about communication. We have different types of relations, and we have the relations of number one of family members. We have the relation of the employer. That's number two. And number three, we have the relationship of the strangers. We also have the relationships of friends. That's number four. And we have the relationships of neighbors. And if you get to understand communication, if you get to understand that you need to relate with the five types of relations I've talked about, then you will understand how to deal with your information or with your communication. People think that talking is equivalent to communication. Is talking the same as communication? Kindly answer me back. But when you get to understand how to communicate with the five types of relations I've talked about, you can understand which practice of communication, which type of communication you're supposed to handle them. We have five types of communication. We have formal communication, we have informal communication, we have verbal communication, we have non-verbal communication, and we have written communication. Those are the five types, but I'm going to concentrate with the four types. I'm not going to concentrate with the written communication. If you get to understand the four types of communication, then you're able to handle with the five relations I've spoken about. The relations of family members, the relations of strangers, the relations of employer, the relations of colleague, the relations of neighbors. Those are the people that you meet day to day life. And there's a different way you communicate to your neighbor. There's a different way you communicate to your colleague. There's a different way you communicate to your employer. There's a different way you communicate to your family member. And there's a different way to communicate to the strangers. If you understand these concepts, then it's going to be easier for you when you're communicating. Communication is not talking. It is part of talking, but it's not talking. It's just a passing of information from one person to another using the sounds. The sounds, the ones I'm making. Excuse me, the sounds I'm making. Sounds and the signs. The signs. I'm going to be talking about signs in the next few minutes. So let's talk about the four types of communication. I've said formal, informal, non-verbal, and verbal. But I'm going to skip the three and I'm going to go to non-verbal communication. This is the most interesting part of the type of communication that people don't understand. People really do not understand the non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is a communication where you use signs. It is just simple. It is where you use signs. You don't produce a sound. You do not produce a sound. But you tend to ask yourself, why is that particular person angry at me? But you have no idea what you did. You did not speak to that person. But then you use a sign. We have different types of signs. This can be gestures. It can be, please understand this with care. It can be gestures. It can be the way you dress. It can be with your tone variation. It can be your body movement. It can be your postures, and it can be your facial expressions. Those are the different types of non-verbal communication. It can be the facial expressions, it can be the gestures, it can be the postures, it can be the body movement, it can be the tone variation, and the way of dressing. Those are, I think, there are six types of non-verbal communication. Let's start with the facial expression. Facial expression is where you make a communication using your face. Just using your face, and people wonder, how have I made communication? Obviously, like I'm doing things like that. Whenever I roll my eyes, I'm rolling my eyes from point A to point B. I've already communicated. Whenever somebody says something to me and I'm like, I've already communicated. And you think nobody is getting your communication. That's how we have communicating. unasema umesinyika, you're angry at that person, you know. I'm also, when I communicate, that means I'm tired. You're in class or you're at work and you're using your facial expression, that means you're tired. You know, when I'm smiling right now. I'm smiling. I'm communicating. I'm happy. When I start crying, when I'm like this, I'm crying. I'm communicating. I'm sad. You don't have to go there and say that person is. You can clearly say that person is sad. That is why that person is communicating using facial expressions. If you don't get these things very easily, you're going to misunderstand communication. So people communicate, the non-verbal communication, you don't have to produce a sound. I said you don't have to produce a sound. It's all about the signs you can get to see. Usually, most of them is you see. So you're seeing this person is crying. You're seeing this person is smiling. You're seeing this person is sleepy. That person is communicating something. If you're in class and people are busy yawning, that means the class banner. You people get up and start singing a song or do something so that the class can be able to be active. So those are the facial expressions. Let's talk about posture. A posture does indicate so much, does communicate so much about a particular person. I always say, if a person puts their hands akimbo like this, that person is very confident. That person wants to, like umenda vita na mtu ameka mikono hivi. That person says, bana kinaeleweka leo ni nini? What do you want? I'm gonna beat you. That person is communicating something, When that person folds their hands like this, that means umeshiba. Usually it's like a position of umeshiba, It can also be we have different types of posing. You can pose like this. This means confident. Have you ever seen the Uhuru and Ruto when they were posing for the 2017? They were posing when their hands are out. That's a posture of confidence. But it means like you're the boss, umeshiba. Like, what do you have to tell me, Somebody puts their hands behind. It's a sign of respect, or even in front. It's a sign of respect. If you're going to see one of your bosses, if you don't go talk to your boss putting your hands like this. You put your hands, maybe I can stand up, you can see. You put your hands like this, that shows respect. You put your hands behind like this, that shows respect. If you put your hands like this, that shows respect. But you can't go talk to your boss when you're putting your hands like this, or you can't talk to your boss when you're putting hands like this. Those are postures, even when you're sitting, you sit with a lot of elegance. You can't go sit when you're putting your hands like this when you're talking to your boss. No. Or you can't go and sit like this. When in an office, you're sitting like this, freelancer. No. As I told you, we have different types of relations. I've told you we have colleagues. I've told you we have your employer. I've told you we have your family members. I have told you we have your neighbors. I've told you we have strangers. I've told you we have different types of relations. So when you know who you're dealing with the non-verbal communication, it speaks volume. So you can go and sit like that when you're in somebody's office. I'll talk more of the formal communication when I get to the type of formal communication. But posture is very, very important. You speak volume with posture. Okay, now we're going to talk about what do you call it? I've talked about facial expression. I've talked about posture. Let's talk about body movement. This is more fun when we do and when we act. What is body movement? Body movement is the way you walk. Is the way you present yourself. Is the way you present yourself. People who walk, they are dragging their feet. They're dragging their feet. That means either you're lazy or you're tired. You don't go dragging your feet. Even when you're coming to sit, it's a body movement. The way you handle your shoes, the way you talk, the way you stand, it's a body movement. People look at that. It's a type of communication. When you're dragging your feet, that means you're tired, or that means you just or you're a heavy person, or you're tired. You don't go dragging your feet. If you get into somebody's office and you're dragging your feet, that sound is being made. Oh, the concentration is coming to the shoes. So you have to be very, very careful when you're trying to, you have to lift up your leg slowly. You have to walk in a very majestic way, especially when you're dealing with the formal communication, not the informal, but the formal type of communication. Because that's a non-verbal way of communication. As I said, non-verbal is the use of signs. So we've talked about facial expressions, we've talked about posture, and then body movement. I have 3 more to address. So let's talk about way of dressing. The way of dressing communicates of who you are as a person. Please, my dress, my choice. It's not for here right now. I'm trying to talk about the types of communication, and I'm trying to talk about the non-verbal communication. The way of dressing communicates who you are. It's very simple. If you want to know this is a Muslim, what do? They wear the kanzu, or they wear the buibui. You get to know ule ni Muislamu. It's very hard to say ule ni Mkristo, because the Muslim communicate this is a way of dressing. You understand the way of dressing. If you go to a club, a night club, and you find somebody, find a lady, she's wearing a very short dress, boob top, and then she's holding a cigarette, and you're busy, with high heels, and you pass them like, how much? How much? They are communicating. It's it's a time of the night. It's in a nightclub. The way you're dressing, a man will easily come and ask you how much, because they see that is a provocative dress. Way of dressing does communicate who you are as a person. The way I'm dressing, it doesn't communicate I'm going to an office. You get somebody wanavaa tie, suti, ana communicate ni mtu ambaye anaenda kwa ofisi. Mtu ambaye amevaa boarding suit, swimming costume. They are communicating that they are going to swim. They're not communicating they are going to the office. So ukiona mtu amevaa swimming costume, unajua who obviously anaingia kwa beach, ama anaenda wapi, ama anaenda kwa swimming pool. That's a way of communication. The way of dressing communicates who you are, or communicates what thing you want to do next. So you understand the way of dressing, how it's also a type of communication. You don't have to tell somebody nenda kwa swimming pool. No. You don't have to. How you dress, umevaa costume, unaona vizuri, umevaa costume. Kwa hivyo kuna mahali unaenda beach, ama unaenda mahali, ama unaenda swimming. So way of dressing also does speak more volume about what you're doing. And then we have this kind of communication, gestures. Gestures is an interesting type of communication. A gestures is quite interesting. You and people don't realize when they're doing gestures. These are things you do them without your knowledge. Like for example, if you're lying, some people tend to say you do this or something, or you scratch your head or something. But gestures are gestures to communicate something. Especially, it can be used in a sign language, or it can be used even somebody ako mbali. It's like wandapi, you like wandapi, kuja, like come, sangapi. That's communicating. When you do this, automatically means you're running out of time, or ni sangapi. You understand? This is a gesture. Like, no, this is a gesture. Yes. So somebody asks you something like, no, even insults. You do know those insults, When you go somewhere else, somebody shows you like a finger, you're like, this is an insult. This somebody is literally amekutukana. This person never said anything using their mouth. They use that sign. So when you even to go to court, or somebody, or when you're beating up somebody, mtu akwambia mbona unamchapa hajasema chochote, you'll be like, amentukana bana, antukana, cause amekuonesha something, you have seen something. So it's a type of communication. So gestures is quite interesting, because people always wonder, sijaongea na ule mtu ni aje basi ananifanya hivi, cause there's a communication that you communicated. Even silent is a communication. So we have talked about the 6 types of communication. We have talked about facial expressions, we have talked about body movements, we have talked about gestures, we have talked about postures, we have talked about way of dressing. I think I have spoken the 6 types of non-verbal communication. So it is very, very important to understand that non-verbal communication is a type of communication using signs, and people don't understand the part of the non-verbal communication, that even it is a way of communication. Hata kama hujasema chochote, it's a type of communication. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the farthest I can go with my video. For my next video, I'm going to go and talk about formal communication, and then informal communication, and lastly, I'll talk about verbal communication. Thank you so much. I hope you'll enjoy the video. Subscribe and keep safe. Mwah. Love you.